May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio mini podcast, a brief memory of Shunryu Suzuki. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths crossed his. So I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable and free from economic hardship, able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today's brief memory comes from Jerry Halpern. In the fall of 1968, before I had come to stay at Tassajara, Roshi, I and at least one other were near the place at the beginning of Grasshopper Flats where it begins to widen, pruning some trees. About dusk and as the end of work period sounded, we gathered up our tools and had almost started back to the Zendo area when he couldn't find his knife. I was self-conscious and in awe of him. He was in a much better position to retrieve his knife. There was little, so far as I could see, that I could really do to help, and I felt it would be insincere, a disreputable show, something not truly respectful of him to begin beating the bush for his knife. He searched around for a short time and declared his knife found. We then returned to the Zendo area. Some years later, during a time that I had begun to feel warm toward myself and others and felt grateful, for the first time, I suddenly remembered this incident. Jerry notices subtle things. You know, I know when I've talked to him about other things, he was like, I think he's another one of these people that came to Zen Center that said they stopped just short of getting their PhD in something, and his, I believe, was in statistics. And one thing I remember is that when Tatsugami was there at Tassajara, he changed the kitchen schedule because he said they worked so hard from being every 4 and 9 day off to being off more, like it was different. It was like, so every 4 and 9 day, we basically are sort of off every 5th day, except at the end of the month, it can go longer than that. You'll be 29, then 30, or even 31, first, second, third, fourth. So there'd be a bigger one there. And in February, you go, 3 out of 4 years ago, 28, 1, 2, 3. You'd have a long time. Anyway, he put the kitchen on a schedule where they were off every 4th day. But nobody could figure out the scheduling. It was because of the number of people in every 4th day, somebody should be able to get off. How do you schedule so the number of people in the kitchen worked? I can't remember what it was like. It was like, there were 5 of them in the kitchen, and so they, something like that. And I remember Bill Shurtleff tried, and he didn't come up with a good one. But Jerry did. He came up with a schedule that worked perfectly. Anyway, so Suzuki declared his knife found. That's interesting. Never thought of him as with a knife. They were working in the bushes, pruning. maybe maybe it's a tool that would have another name like clippers or pruning shears or something. He might not have found it. He might have been embarrassed. He might have not wanted other people to worry about it. But there's another thing to notice here, and that is Jerry's feeling about Suzuki, being so in awe of him. I mean, we hear that a lot from people, especially people who are new to be around him. And, this is a hard thing for a teacher to have to deal with if they get all those sorts of projections. And Suzuki got a lot of them, very heavy, because, he was clearly, I mean, the way he was, his presence and everything, was impressive in its, how smooth he was, and how, like people would say, normal and gentle and kind and all that, and natural, but the other thing is his reputation. So, if he hadn't had any of that reputation, no sin or anything, and he'd just been somebody working for Japan Airlines, you just say, well, I really like that man. But a lot of that projection, maybe none of that projection would be there. And it's very interesting to see, some people had it very heavy, like being in awe, feeling small, feeling shy, embarrassed, and then other people just like sort of matter of fact and dealing with. I mean, there was a whole gamut of ways people related, but that's a very interesting thing to notice there. And so one thing we can notice in these stories is not only things that Suzuki said in certain situations or did, but what his students said and did in these situations, because it's the two of them together, the interaction, that is creating the real story. That's why I say preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths crossed his. This is a story of all of us together. And yeah, he was at the center of it. But without us, he wouldn't be there. Okay. This has been another brief memory. I'm D.C. Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doghead Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're praying you and yours and all of us have a grand awakening.